Hello, welcome back to my channel and welcome to this week's video where I'm gonna be telling you about 20 anticipated book releases for 2025. So I'm gonna be talking about 20 books, which is the same that I did for, well, when I'm filming this, it's still 2024, but when this video comes out, I guess last year. And I didn't actually end up reading the 20 books because I think 3 of them didn't actually come out in 2024, so they are on this list for 2025 because they are supposed to be released in 2025 now. Let's hope they actually are. But yeah, I'm gonna be talking about 20 books and I'm gonna be talking about them in like the order that they will be released. And I think the first one I'm gonna be talking about will already like be out by the time that this video comes out. But anyway, I'm gonna start talking about obviously the books that come out in January. And the first one is Adrift in Currents Clean and Clear. And this one comes out on January 7th, which I think, like I said, is before the time that this video comes out. So I guess it will already be out. But this is the, I think, 10th book in the Wayward Children series, which is a series of fantasy novellas. And in the series, we follow a bunch of children who go through like magical doors that lead them into other worlds. And most times those kids feel like they actually belong in those other worlds that they explore and not in the one that they were originally from. But, and I mean, some of them actually don't like those new worlds, but most of them do feel like it's where they belong. But they eventually do have to come back to their original world. And there is a school where like those kids go to, and the owner of the school herself went through one of those doors when she was a kid. And we meet like a lot of the kids at that school. And I have like mixed feelings about this series because I mean, I like all of the books, but some of them I love and some of them are just like okay. And the ones that I love are the books where we explore a new world with a new character, and the books that are just okay or like mainly just okay are the ones where we just follow the characters on like some kind of quest. And usually we have like a quest book and then a world book and then a quest book and then a world book. And this one is gonna be, I think it looks like, exploring a new world, which I'm very excited for. And the main character that we're gonna follow in this book is called Nadia. And she, like after she was forced to wear a prosthetic arm by her parents, she feels like she's not really herself anymore. And so like she runs away from home. And after she runs away, she finds one of those magical doors and she's transported to a new world, a world like full of water. And I mean, she feels very at home, but at the same time, it has like a lot of dangers. And so, like I said, it seems like we're going to be exploring a new world. So I am very excited for this book. And also there is like a turtle on the cover of the book, and also in the synopsis it talks about like giant turtles. So I'm very excited about that as well because I love turtles. The next book is Witchcraft for Wayward Girls, and this one comes out on January 14th, and this one is horror. And I'm excited for this one because out of all of the books that I've read from this author, I only didn't like one of them, which I think was called Final Girl Support Group or something like that. But all of the other books that I've read from this author, I've really enjoyed, so I'm excited for this one. And there's this place called Wellwood Home where girls who are not married and are pregnant are sent to have their babies in secret. And we are following 15-year-old Fern, who is pregnant and not married. And she's sent there to, again, have her baby in secret in, I think, 1970. And in there she meets other girls who are in the same situation as her, and they are like controlled every second of every day until a librarian tells her about a book about witchcraft, and finally these girls might actually have some power. But there is always a price to pay for power, and usually the price is blood, is what says in the synopsis. So again, very excited for this one. Then we have At Dark I Become Loathsome, and this one comes out in January 28th, and this one is also horror. And again, from this author, I've read a bunch of books that I really enjoyed, and there was only one that I didn't like. So I'm excited for this one as well for that reason. And these authors' books are always like pretty disturbing and gross, and exactly what I'm looking for in this kind of horror. And honestly, like after I read the synopsis, I didn't understand really what was going on, or like not enough to explain in my own words. So I actually have Goodreads open here because I am confused. But it does sound disturbing, and like before we get to the actual synopsis, it says a grim yet gentle, horrifying yet hopeful, intense tale of death, trauma, and love. It says like a single line of text, glowing in the darkness of the internet, written by Ashley Luton. Luton? I don't know. Who has often thought the same and worse in the years since his wife died and his young son disappeared. But the peace of the grave is not for him. It's for those he can help. Ashley has constructed a peculiar ritual for those whose desire to die is at war with their yearning to live a better life. Struggling to overcome his own endless grief, one night Ashley finds connections with Jinx, a potential candidate for Ashley's next ritual, who spins a tale both revolting and fascinating. Thus begins a relationship that traps the two men in an ever-tightening spiral of painful revelations, where long-hidden secrets are dragged, kicking and screaming, into the light. Only through pain can we find healing. Only through death can we find new life. So, sounds intriguing, sounds disturbing, and sounds like it's potentially gonna be gross. So, can't wait. Then, moving on to the books that are gonna be released in February. The first one is A Dragon of Black Glass, which is going to be released on February 18th. And this is the third book in the Moonfall series, which is fantasy. And in this book, or like in this series, a young girl in the first book is like, she foresees the end of the world. And because of that, she is given a death sentence. And then there are also three men that we follow: a prince, a thief, and a soldier. And one of them finds like a very old, very important artifact. The artifact itself kind of has life, so that is also very interesting. And these four characters plus the artifact are like joined together to try to save the world. And in the second book, we learned a lot more about like the prophecies in the past in the world. And there was also a very epic fight that had me stressed out. And apparently in this book, they're going to be looking for like an ancient weapon that is going to help them in trying to save the world. And the character is going to realize that to save the world, they're going to have to destroy everything that they have once loved. And I have really liked the first two books in the series, so I'm very excited for this third one as well. Then we have the fourth consort, which comes out on February 25th, and this one is sci-fi. And we're going to be following Dalton, who is one of the first of like the humans to be part of a pan-species confederation called Unity that is working to bring all sentient life to a benevolent brotherhood, or so they say. But that is not really what Dalton has seen, like from the people that he knows from that organization. But there is actually a benevolent confederation that does exist, and it's called the Assembly. And they obviously don't like Unity, and they don't like their like human minions, including obviously Dalton. And when Dalton goes on a mission to another planet, he is gonna be trapped among like the Unity, Assembly, and also the planet's natives. And he's gonna have to figure out how far he'll go to survive. And this book is actually from the same author as Mickey 7, like that duology that I really, really enjoyed. I really like the sci-fi and like the thrillery element of it, but I also really like the humor that that series had, so I am expecting to also love this book. Then we have Shroud, which comes out on February 27th, and it's also sci-fi. And in this book, a mission that is going to like a distant star system finds a like pitch black moon that has radioactivity, and they call that moon Shroud. And it's not like livable for humans. The conditions are not good for humans at all. But after an accident, actually two characters end up like in Shroud or on Shroud, having to survive not only those very adverse conditions that, like I said, are not good for human life, but also the native species of Shroud. And even if they do survive and make it out, they're gonna have to deal with the people who are gonna wanna profit from everything that Shroud has to offer. So they're gonna be like in trouble either way. And I've loved every book that I've read from this author, especially the sci-fi ones. I've only read a fantasy book from this author, I think, and I enjoyed it. I didn't love it as much as the sci-fi ones, but the sci-fi books I have loved every single one, so I expect this to be just as good. Then moving on to March. And in this month, I only have one book to talk about, which is called This Book Will Bury Me. And it's gonna come out on March 25th. And this one is a mystery thriller. And in this book, we're following Jane. And after her father died, she has become obsessed with true crime because basically it gives her something to, focus on to escape her grief. And after some college students are killed, Jane and her friends are investigating those deaths. And as they investigate, they see that the case is stranger than it seems, like the details don't add up, and police seems to be kind of lying, and they feel like they're walking into a trap as they investigate. And the story is, I think, actually gonna be told a year after everything happened, where Jane is finally gonna come clear about everything that happened and the truth about this case. And like from this author, I've read a book that I really liked and I read a book that I didn't. So like I'm excited because it does seem interesting, but I'm cautiously excited. Then moving on to April. And coming out on April 8th is called Eternity, and this one is a sci-fi horror. And just like the previous author, from this author, I've also read a book that I really, really liked, and I've also read a book that I didn't really like as much. So again, I'm excited, but still cautiously excited. And so in this book, we're going to be following Hallie, and she is on the run from a like interplanetary political scandal, and she actually gets to a spaceship that is full of cryogenically frozen people. They're like Earth's wealthiest people. They are, the bodies are there frozen, but the ship is otherwise like empty of life. But still, she starts seeing like figures crawling in the hallways and weird noises coming from the vents. And Ali is realizing that maybe she just got trapped in a situation that is more dangerous than the one she was running from. Then we have The Staircase in the Woods, which comes out on April 29th, and this one is a horror book. And we are going to be following 5 high school friends that are like in the woods, and they see a staircase just in the middle of the woods that leads to like seemingly nowhere. But one of the friends like goes up the staircase and he never comes back down, and then the staircase disappears. And now 20 years later, the other 4 friends are coming together because the staircase has reappeared. So they come together to find their missing friend and also what lies beyond the staircase. And this one sounds very creepy, and it also reminds me of a season of a horror show that I watched, which is called Channel Zero. I think it was the 3rd season, and that show was also like so creepy. And I remember, like, I don't remember much about the show because I watched it a few years ago, but I remember that in one of the seasons, I think it was the 3rd season, there was like a staircase in the woods that also seemingly led to nowhere. And I did really love that show. So yeah, I'm excited for this one. Now moving on to May. The first book is Overgrowth, which comes out on May 6th, and this one is sci-fi horror. And I absolutely love this author, and like I love this author as like this name, Meyer Grant, and I also love this author as Seanan McGuire, who is the one that writes like the Wayward Children series, which is like my first anticipated release. I think like as Seanan McGuire, she writes more like fantasy, and as Meyer Grant, she writes more like horror, sci-fi-ish. But I love like all of those genres. I love pretty much everything that this author writes, and also very excited. And so in this one, we are following Anastasia, and ever since she was very young, she has been telling people that she is an alien disguised as a human, and that the people who, or like the aliens who left her there, are gonna be coming back for her. But no one really believes what she's saying. But then an alien signal starts actually being broadcast around the world, and so the aliens are actually coming back for Anastasia, and they are coming to invade the planet. Then we have The Devils, which comes out on May 13th, and this one is a fantasy horror. And actually, I have never read a book from this author, although I have some in my TBR, and I have some even in my physical TBR. I have the first 3 books of the First Slot trilogy, I think that's what it's called. And honestly, like by the time that this book comes out, I intend on having read those 3 books, but I have actually not yet read a book from this author. But like even if I have never heard from this author, which I obviously have, and I've heard great things, I would still be drawn to this book because it looks very dark and very intriguing, and I love the mixture of fantasy and horror, like absolutely love it. And so like I would be excited about this book regardless. And so in this book we are going to be following Brother Diaz, who is called to the sacred city to like have a new flock basically, and basically the people that he's gonna be preaching to are just like murderers and users of black magic and just like monsters, which he wasn't really expecting. And there are also like elves at the borders that like hunger for their flesh. And so with this new journey ahead of him, maybe it's good that he has the devils on his side. And that is like pretty much what the synopsis says, and it sounds amazing, it sounds intriguing, and it sounds, like I said, very dark, so I am very excited. Then we have on May 8th as well the Lord of Demons, which is the third book in the Burning series, which is fantasy. And this book doesn't yet have a cover or a title, but I don't really need it because I love the first two books, which I have here, and I have been waiting for this book to come out forever because the way that the second book ends, not satisfying at all. Like I am waiting to keep learning more about this and the journey that the main character is on. And basically the main character is called Tao, and his mission, or at least at first his mission, is to get revenge on the people that ruined his life. And to do that, he has to enter the army. And there are two different armies in this world because there are the armies of the nobles and the armies of the lessers. And Tao is actually a lesser, but he needs to get into the army of the nobles. And if I remember correctly, but this has been a few years, they, like the best army, like the winners of the army of the lessers can actually enter the army of the nobles, and that is like what his goal is. But then like it becomes so much more, and in this second book we actually see like a lot more of the world. And this one was 5 stars. I think the first one I gave 4 stars to, the second one I gave 5 stars. And it has like magic because it's fantasy, obviously. It has dragons, it has demons, it has other dimensions. I love this so much, and like I said, I have been waiting for years for the third book to come out, and I cannot wait to read it. Then moving on to June, we have Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil, which comes out on June 10th. And this one is fantasy, and like there's almost nothing in the synopsis. I also have that one open here. Like there is nothing here. Like this synopsis just says, I mean, first it has like 3 different locations with 3 different dates in like different centuries. And then it has like 3 lines, which are 3 young women, their bodies planted in the same soil, their stories tangling like roots. One grows high, and one grows deep, and one grows wild, and all of them grow teeth. That's it. That's a synopsis, so I have no idea what this book is about. But, I mean, first of all, it sounds intriguing. Second of all, I think it's about vampires, so that's exciting. And thirdly, I have read the Darker Shades of Magic series by this author and love them, so I hope I love this one as well. Then moving on to July, we have The Girl in the Creek, which comes out in July 15th, and it is a horror book. And the Clackamas National Forest has always been a sanctuary for evil, both human and alien. And there is like a ruined hotel that is like covered in fungus and mushrooms. And I've read like a few horrors that are like about things being covered in mushrooms and other kinds of fungi, and I usually really like them, so that's already like a point in favor of this book. And there are a lot of people that go missing in this forest, and Erin goes there to investigate her brother's disappearance, but someone else has also gone missing, and Erin actually finds that someone else, like in the creek, it's the girl in the creek, but then that girl, her body also disappears from the morgue, and her fingerprints are found in another crime scene. And so now Erin needs to figure out what the hell is going on. And yeah, this one also sounds intriguing and kind of creepy and kind of probably gross with the mushrooms. So I'm excited about this one as well. Then also still in July 15th, we have The Bewitching, which is also a horror book. And in this book, we're gonna following Minerva, who is studying the history of horror literature, and she is like researching an author specifically. And that author has gone to the same university that she is in, and that author had like been obsessed with her roommate who had gone missing under suspicious circumstances. And as she investigates, she Minerva finds out that the dark forces that were following that author, and also maybe her own grandmother, are now after her. And this book is, I think, about witches, which I'm very excited about. I have been obsessed with witches for a while now, and I don't think that obsession is going away anytime soon. So anything that's about witches sounds absolutely fantastic to me. And so I am also very excited about this book. Then we have Not Quite Dead Yet, which comes out on July 22nd, and this one is a mystery thriller. And this one also doesn't yet have a cover as of the time I'm filming this video, and this one, since it's like a standalone, I don't even have like the cover of other books in like a series to put there, so there's like actually no cover, which is pretty sad. But yeah, this is a mystery thriller, like I said. And on Halloween night, Jet is attacked and she suffers a pretty severe like brain injury, and the doctors are pretty sure that she will be dead in a week. Like she will have a deadly aneurysm and she only has a week to live. And in those 7 days, in that week, she's very determined to basically solve her own murder. And I have read and loved the A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series from this author, so I'm very excited to read this one. I also read The Reappearance of Rachel Price, which I didn't like love as much. I thought it was like way too long, but I still enjoyed, and I did love the other series, so I'm excited for this book as well. Then we have A Raging Heart, which comes out on July 29th. And this one also has no cover yet, but it's book 3 of the Heartless Fates trilogy. I think it's gonna be a trilogy, and that is fantasy. And in the series, we start following Kala, who is a witch, again with the witches. And as a witch, her fate is connected to the witch's dice, which are like actual dice, like you throw and you get a result that is connected to your fate. And her fate seems to be connected to a future war that is coming, like with the gods, that could lead to the end of her people. So obviously she doesn't really like her fate and she wants to change her fate. And she actually meets someone, a prince, that also wants to change his own fate. And he knows about someone that lives in the never-ending forest that might actually be able to change their fate or revert their fates. And so in the first book, they go to the never-ending forest and they go through like a bunch of trials, and then things get crazy at the end. And in the second book, we see, you know, all the characters kind of being in trouble, and we also like follow Kala's 2 best friends, and they're also in trouble. And there's like a bunch of creatures in this book. It's not just witches. We have also Valkyries and we have sirens, and I think we also have something else that I'm forgetting. But we get to know more about these other species as well, and also other parts of the world where different creatures live, which I really, really enjoyed in the second book. And the ends, once again, kind of crazy, and the epilogue also makes it seem like crazy things are going to happen in the third book. So I'm also very excited for that one. Then in August, we have Catabasis, which is gonna come out on August 28th, and it is a fantasy book. And in this one, we follow Alice, who has basically sacrificed everything to study with Jacob Grimes, a professor called Jacob Grimes, who is also the best magician in the world. And that is until Professor Jacob actually dies in a magical accident that could actually be Alice's fault. And so Alice actually goes to hell after Grimes to get his recommendation, because since he was the best magician in the world, having his recommendation could be great for Alice's career, and she's not gonna give up on her dreams just because the guy went to hell. And so she goes there after him, and her rival, Peter, actually goes with her as well. And so they basically have to survive hell, but there is something in their past that could like lead to their doom. And I have read everything that this author has written, and I have loved everything. So I literally have the highest expectations for this book, and I think they are gonna be met because I have literally loved everything that this author has written. So I am very, very, very excited for this book. Then in September, we have War Widow, which comes out on September 2nd, and this is the second book in the Blood Scion. I think it's a duology, and it is fantasy. And in the first book, we followed Sloane, who was 15 years old, and she was a Blood Scion, which means that basically she can burn people, and she is a descendant of the ancient gods. And under the Lucy's rule, being a Scion is actually a death sentence, so she has to hide her powers. And she is actually forced to go into the Lucy's army, and so she's determined to basically destroy them from the inside. And so in the first book, we see her training for the army and learning and honestly like suffering. This book was pretty brutal, and I really like the main character, and there is also like a reveal slash plot twist there at the end that was pretty crazy. The only thing I didn't really like was the romance, but that's just a me thing. In like most times I either don't like or don't care about the romance. It's rare that I actually like it. But yeah, in this case it's not that I didn't care, which is what happens most times. In this case I actually didn't like it, but like I said, there might be a me problem, and like my dislike for the romance didn't really affect my other thoughts about the book because I really like I said, the main character, and I also really like the world and the magic, and I'm very curious to learn more about it. So I am very excited for the second book. And then finally, in December, we have the Dawn Throne, which comes out on December 12th. And this is the third and I think final book in the Dark Gods series, or like I said, probably, I think, trilogy. And this one also doesn't have a cover or a synopsis yet. But in this series, there are like 4 gods and 4 powers and 4 heirs. And the powers are of life, of death, of light, and of darkness. And in the City of Dusk, which is where they live, and it's actually, I think, the title of the first book, there is like a king, and the king doesn't have an heir, and he will choose an heir, like out of those 4, he will choose one of them for like his own heir. So basically those 4 main characters are like working against each other to be like the chosen heir, but at the same time they have to actually start working together to save their city. And I really like the first and the second books. And actually in the second book, all of the characters were like in different places doing different things, where like in book 1 they were all kind of together. In the second book they were all, doing their own thing, and I was like really, really, really invested in 3 of them, and like 3 of the characters and 3 of their plot lines. And there was the 4th one that I really couldn't have cared less about. So, there was that. But other than that, I really, really enjoyed it, and I really love the ending, which was kind of insane. So yeah, I'm very excited for this book as well. And yeah, this was the 20th book actually. So those are all of the books that I am excited for to come out in 2025. And I'm sure that as the year progresses, I will find a lot more books that are coming out that I'm excited about, because that always happens. But yeah, these are the 20 books that I wanted to tell you about. So I hope that maybe you have found some new books to also be excited about if you hadn't heard about some of these. And yeah, that is everything for this video. So thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you have enjoyed it. And if you did, give it a like and subscribe, and I will talk to you next time. Bye!